Okay, so we are here today to discuss a couple of points that often, like in the messages, private messages on Facebook, Instagram, whatever, arriving to me, and I don't really have the time to answer to all. So I will, once in a while, I will do a video trying to answer to the most asked questions. Okay, so the first one is a big one. Are all Kung Fu styles the same? It's a simple question, yet super difficult to answer. Why? Because you need a very deep knowledge into this, let's call it tradition, science of combat, science of martial arts, that the Chinese have pretty much since like 500 years. So it's not that easy to answer. Short answer is yes. All Kung Fu come probably from the same source, which are some kind of military trainings, preparation of the troops that come from the end of the Ming Dynasty, so 14th century, 15th century, and all of that time, where actually firearms were like more and more in use. They were starting to be in large use, the technology was advancing and the price was dropping, and so more and more troops were adopting it. So always the start of any martial art, Italian martial arts, German martial arts, American martial arts, whatever, doesn't matter who started it, doesn't matter who did it, they all start around the time where the people were starting to use firearms instead of blades and instead of the ancient ways of doing war. So why that happened? That's quite easy to explain. When there is an old tradition that is falling down, an old tradition, a way of doing something. That could be an artisan that knows how to do chairs or tables or whatever it is. Okay, it could be this could be applied to anything it requires a tradition. By the time this tradition is not in use or is no longer in use or is going to be old school very soon, there is somebody who take all the tradition, they pack it in a way that could be sellable and do it for business, but they do it also to maintain that tradition alive. So picture that before there were lots of master at arms. So those were able to teach to troops and to privates and to generals or to just noblemen, whatever was giving them some money, basically, like it was just a business. And then out of the blue, like at a certain point in history, they were like old school. They were doing something that people don't do it very much. People starting to have guns, but the guns have only one big bullet. So they were, I mean, yeah, maybe you can have a gun and then you can have a sword and then you can have maybe just a gun. So by the time, technology progressed, you have from the 14th and 15th century until the 19th century. That is the time where we have the martial arts that we know as martial arts, okay? Before, of course, there were way of combats, there were tradition of combats for sport or for the military since the ancient Greece, so thousands of years ago. But martial arts as we know it as traditional Chinese martial arts, they born in that period of time. Period of time that is quite large, are like 400 years, and Chinese people are a lot of people. So there were many different variations and many different ways to do it. Some masters have continued like a certain tradition, specializing a kind of skill. Others have preferred another kind of skill. There is someone who prefer muscular power, some others that prefer a more internal way of develop the body, and that created many different variations. What is important technically, because this is historically, you may know this stuff or you are not very interested in this stuff, or you are very interested in this stuff, you want to know more, but at the end of the day it doesn't make your body, your skills better or worse if you know history, okay? What does it actually made it good. If you continue to stick with a certain tradition, that you continue to stick and train really hard with a certain tradition, that it doesn't go head to head with another one which is promoting, developing, training completely different skills. Okay, so let's put the case that you want to improve your muscular power. Good, so you do kind of training. Then suddenly out of the blue you go to another tradition that actually one of the pillars of that tradition is be particularly relaxed and don't use the muscle in a normal way but in another way. So do you think that you can practice two things at the same time and having the outcome is something better than if you have followed just one? No. And this comes like to be, how to say, in contrast with the concept of MMA, which is mixed martial arts, which we commonly say that the father of MMA as a concept is the actor Bruce Lee. Because Bruce Lee basically say, if you practice the best of many martial arts, it's not bad, it's good, you can improve yourself in many different ways. That actually doesn't really work out. A specialized boxer, so someone who does boxing as a profession, not as a leisure, okay, so it doesn't have a superficial knowledge of boxing, but a professional knowledge of boxing, will never improve his boxing if he does a little bit less boxing and more Muay Thai. Okay, will be a very, very bad Muay Thai fighter and still pretty much at the same level as boxing that he was doing as a Western boxing. So it doesn't actually make any sense, even if you don't consider Kung Fu and traditional Chinese martial arts, which are of course much more complicated. So if we go into that, things are even deeper and less mixable, okay? It's very hard to mix. Because if I start to develop some concepts that are body qualities, for example in Taijiquan, if you're looking at this video right now, probably you are interested in Taijiquan. Taijiquan have a very, very strict ways of develop certain body qualities. The movements that you do with the hands are not actually very important. What important is the energy and the principles in actions that those movements are moved with. Okay, so think that those concepts are the opposite of another style. Okay, for example, Baihechuan, okay, which is where Wing Chun, Karate, and many other styles come from. It's very, very different from Taijiquan. It's almost like at the opposite, which not always is so visible because you may misunderstand, and this will be the second point that I'm going to explain in two seconds, but that's one of the points. Not to go in contrast with the principle of another tradition. You can follow your own tradition. So Taijiquan, good, you can follow any Taijiquan you want. You will improve your Taijiquan. You will follow many masters because every master knows a little bit. It doesn't do 100%, it doesn't know 100%, so I go to this master, I know this. Oh, that's a Taijiquan Wu Hao style. Very good, I learned this thing, which I think is very important. Then I go to another master of Taijiquan, not of Muay Thai, not of boxing, not of Beihechuan, not of Talanchuan, okay? I go to another Taijiquan master and I learn maybe to have position that have some kind of thing, maybe the 1% that I didn't know, and I implement my CV, I grow my Taijiquan. That's very good, okay? So you adding things of your own tradition that doesn't go in contrast with another tradition. Now, the second point, which is very important. So we were speaking about visible and not visible. Of course, your way of seeing, it changes in base of your actual knowledge. The more you know something, the more you can see something that the other people can't see it. Okay? A beginner will see something that an expert will see something else. Okay, this for whatever technique, whatever skill, whatever it is. Okay, and it's really important in Kung Fu, in Chinese traditional martial arts. Why? Because very often we see with our eyes and we judge what we see with our eyes. Okay, so we see a master or student doing a form and we judge it in base of what we know, which it may be right, wrong, superficial, or very deep. So it's actually just a point of view. When you see something, it's just a point of view. Okay, so differences. When you see something, they may appear completely different in 1 year, 2 years, 20 years, 30 years from now. The same thing, the same video, the same form, the same person. Okay? So this is an introduction to the second point that I want to discuss with you today. When you see Bei He Chuan, you are seeing something, so the white crane style, you're seeing something that it may look very different from what you know of Taijiquan, or could be very similar to what you know today is Taijiquan. Okay, so if I tell you that actually being relaxed, be fluid, move your center, move the center of your opponent, controlling the hands, the arms, the shoulders, and eventually the center of the body of the opponent, all of these factors are not exactly only from Taijiquan, are from many styles. Okay, so at the current state of the knowledge of Kung Fu in the world, okay, so what do people usually know about Kung Fu? I can show you something that looks like Taijiquan as for Bagua, Xingyi, Talang, Meihua, 1,000 styles. Why? Because these are not the secrets. Controlling the opponent, controlling the center, move your weight in a certain way, being relaxed, being fluid, and blah, 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 are not secret concept of inner martial art, blah, 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 like some idiotic people trying to sell you online, some scammers trying to give you as a secret ancient knowledge from this century of this other century. Is not. Those are from any style. It's just that if you have practiced 10 years, 20 years in Europe, you have probably have studied with someone for a long time, but a very superficial curriculum of that style, of that tradition. So you actually don't know the style. You know the first class, just you did the first class for 20 years. So you're very good at the first class. This and that, don't know what you did at the first class, you know, but you don't know what happened after the first class. When you go to China, or there is some Chinese masters that come to you, he show you a little bit a second and third class, you know, to follow my metaphor, and you say, oh my God, this is the ancient secret of the style. Because you think that you are a master, because you did something for 20, 30 years, but actually is not. For sure is not. So be careful of what you see. What you see is just a point in a very long line. You don't know if this point is at the beginning, in the middle, of the end. Okay? So consider that these things are not from Taijiquan, are not from Bei He Chuan. These are things that you can find in any style. Of course, any style have a different way to see many points, even the fundamental points, which are these ones that we are discussing right now. Maintain the center, turn, lean, the things that you probably have heard thousands and thousands of times. One way is how you express it in Bei He Chuan. So it's so-called Huang style Taijiquan, which is from Master Hua Shenxiang, a Behe master, very, very good and very famous, that have moved to Malaysia looking to escape from the Chinese government before and after the Cultural Revolution, that have suddenly called whatever he was doing Taijiquan for conveniences, because if you know a little bit Taijiquan like I do, you immediately see that that is not Taijiquan, that are the moves of young Taijiquan, but with a Behe asset style of expressing the power, a way of delivering power, absorbing and delivering in a Behe way. Of course, probably you never saw real Behe and you never saw real Taijiquan. This, you have to accept it. That's the way it is. So when you put these two things in connections, you have no knowledge and no knowledge. You put them in connection in base of videos that you have watched on YouTube mostly, or things that you have done in your gym, and that's it. So your knowledge, it's really like the 0%, because it could be also that the 1% that you think you know is wrong. So these are things that you need to accept it, like I did. That's why I went to China, and I lived there for 20 years. Because I was asking myself, what I do is actually exactly the same as what it is, because I have a lot of questions. So that's why I moved to China, because I had lots of questions. I was already been practicing for many, many years, more than a decade. I was a teacher, but I restarted because I have these questions. So it's normal to have questions. Okay, even the Chinese have questions. Everybody have questions. So the way you deliver that kind of power, it could be very, very different from style to style. If I say relax, could be said as sung or fang sung, or to sink, or to implode, or to explode, are things that maybe a master of Bagua say to his student, a master of Behe say to his student, but the way they express it, it's very different. So be aware that the things that this master is telling me, this master is telling you, are the things from the tradition is claiming. Okay, if I'm promoting myself as a Taijiquan young style master, I need to be from a tradition that taught me certain kind of things. But if for all of my life I did Jiu-Jitsu, and right now it's 3 years that I do Taijiquan, but then I teach you Taijiquan, I will teach you Taijiquan with a Jiu-Jitsu engine, with a Jiu-Jitsu mindset, with a Jiu-Jitsu skills, which may work fine. Doesn't matter. If you like it, you can do it. Just know that that's not Taijiquan. That's Jiu-Jitsu with a coat of that it's called Taijiquan. Okay, so I hope it's fine. Such few important points. Just let's recap it, because when I start to talk, I don't really realize how long is passing. So, first point, be aware of what you're doing. Track your teacher's records and make those records very important in your decision, because your time, it's your time that will never go back to you. It's just, this is the time that we are living, and when we die, we die. So understand that your time is the most precious thing that you have. Your effort, your sweat, your training is the most important thing you actually have. If you invest it in someone who is claiming to be a this master, and you wanted something different, and you stick with this person, even when you know all of this stuff, that's your fault. You will waste 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. At the end, you will have no skills. You think that you will think that you have a knowledge of this, instead you have absolutely nothing. So think before you act. Think before you invest your time. Okay, don't complain if you deliberately choose something that you don't want. Okay. Second point, don't base everything by looking. The vision, the quality of the vision in Kung Fu that you have at this moment is practically zero. You don't have the visual skills to evaluate what you are looking at. Third point, don't make associations, especially visual associations. If someone moves very, very soft, oh, it's very internal. Wrong. If someone moves very fast, oh, this is not for me because it's not Taijiquan if it's fast. Wrong. So see, a lot of concepts that you think to know are completely wrong. I'm not even saying that they can be right in some particular. No. This one completely wrong. But most of the people that are in Taijiquan, they think are right because they don't know Taijiquan. So don't base your judgment by what you see and connect, this one, it look, for example, many, this one, it look like judo, it look like jiu-jitsu. Oh, if the master do this one, I saw the same thing from another master that does bagua. So bagua, Taijiquan are actually the same thing. So this kind of, talk, martial art talk that you have in your mind, or even worse with your friends, it's really, really not necessary. You don't need it. It's terrible. All the mental association that you will do are completely useless because you have a superficial knowledge of something. You have a superficial knowledge of Taiji, superficial knowledge of Jiu-Jitsu. Then what are you doing? All this superficiality that you have, you connect it together. So you connect wrong with wrong and you find some associations. Oh, this one it looks like Ichuan because it moves like this. 1,000 other styles do these movements. It's not about Ichuan. It's not. You just don't understand. So don't base your judgment of only visually connecting, experiencing, and then I want to add another one. Don't choose a tradition because you think you are already good in doing that. That's a thing that I never heard before, that I say in every class to all of my beginners. Very hard that a person, and this I discover by teaching over the time because I have no idea, very difficult that a person will approach a practice that could be a sport, that could be a martial art, that could be a combat sport, whatever, where he thinks he's super bad at it. Now it sounds right. Sounds something, oh yeah, actually it is. It is like this. If someone started Western boxing, maybe he thinks he's not good yet, but he thinks he got a chance. If someone starts, let's say, I don't know, Shaolin Nanchuan, probably he thinks he's very coordinated, he can do a very low stances, he looks good when he moves, stuff like this. So he thinks he got like some kind of chances. Also, if you want to go forward in traditional Chinese martial art, don't think in this way. The qualities that you have at the moment that you start are completely useless in terms of what you're going to learn. What you're going to learn, it will need your time, your sacrifice, and your effort. That's it. Don't need any talent. The talent doesn't exist. Okay? You need your time, a lot of effort, attitude, effort. Put your mind into one thing for very, very long hours every day. That's what makes a lot of difference. Okay, that it is. It's not that you think, oh, when I move, I'm very soft, so I can follow the enemy, so I do Taijiquan. That's kind of that kind of talk that is really, really bad. Okay, so if you have other questions, please text me, send me a private message, or send me an email. Thank you very much.